We are about to immerse ourselves into the mysterious worldview of the ancient Chinese sage, philosopher, and mystic, Lao Tzu. Although Lao Tzu was an ordinary man, his wisdom astonishes with its depth and perfection, causing scholars and historians to even doubt his existence. There are theories suggesting that his work Tao Te Ching wasn't written by one person, but rather by a multitude of philosophers over the centuries. Lao Tzu's philosophy is so profound that it cannot be grasped through intellect, effort of thought, logic. In a sense, the only way to truly understand Lao Tzu is to become Lao Tzu yourself. Because of his wisdom, there is a legend that Lao Tzu's mother gave birth to him as an 80-year-old man. Lao Tzu is not even a name. Translating from Chinese, it means old master, or simply old human. Lao Tzu became a legend in his own lifetime. When Confucius met him personally and attempted to engage in a debate, he was terrified and escaped, later saying, "I know how to catch a fish in a net and a beast in a trap, but catching a dragon is beyond my abilities." Lao Tzu is not a man, he is the dragon. Such was Confucius' impression on this sage. In his old age, Lao Tzu decided to leave the province and retreat into the mountains to meet his death in solitude. However, he was stopped at the border gates by his disciple, who persistently asked Lao Tzu to leave behind his knowledge. Thus, Lao Tzu wrote Tao Te Ching, translated from Chinese as the text on universal way and its power, into the bottomless depths of which we will dive today. It is important to note that our discussion will not touch upon the philosophy and religion that emerged after Lao Tzu, named Taoism. Lao Tzu himself denied religion and philosophy. Tao Te Ching is not a philosophical text in the conventional sense. It is a unique mirror in which Lao Tzu's own vision of reality is reflected. Like a painting attempts to reflect the moonlight shimmering off the surface of a lake. Just as smooth surface of the lake distorts the essence of the moon, so does the artist in their creation distort the reality of the moon's reflection. Therefore, one should not take Lao Tzu too literally and seriously. And yet, sometimes, it seems that the moon reflected in the lake is incredibly real, even more alive and present than the one that rises in the skies. Similarly, in canvas and paints, in the hands of a true master, can create a painting that seems to us more real than reality itself. This is what Tao Te Ching attempts. Lao Tzu is primarily a poet. The task of a poet is to cut out what is insignificant, leaving only what carries depth. And true depth is not about intellectual message, but about what is grasped on a deeper level of ourselves. Poetry doesn't aim to convey knowledge of facts. It inspires. It is an awakening call to our hearts. Call to open up the mystery of existence. Look at it through the eyes of an innocent child. The Tao Te Ching should be perceived as poetry. Lao Tzu does not teach anything. He invites us to share with him the mystery of life, become one with the flow of the universe, with what he called Tao. Tao can be translated as stream, flow, way, or groove. It is a universal flow which includes everything from physical laws to human emotions, from matter to consciousness. It unites life and death in an eternal dance. All phenomena of nature pulsate to the groove of Tao. Tao is the essence of nature, in the broadest and deepest sense of the word. Even if gods existed, they would all follow Tao. There is nothing that does not follow Tao or cannot follow it. You follow Tao. Your breath and heartbeat follow Tao, as the flow of the river and the movement of the moon and the shining of the stars. Everything follows Tao. At this very moment, you are not separate from Tao, just as you are not separate from the space. You are part of this flow, the grand, fantastic dance of nature. Tao is not an abstract philosophical concept. It is alive and can be experienced any moment. You don't need years of study and meditation to realize Tao. The problem with realizing Tao is that it is the most obvious and simple phenomenon, present at every moment. Tao is difficult to realize because it is invisible and omnipresent, like the air we breathe. One could say that seeker of Tao is like a fish in its quest to find the water. When by accident the fish is washed away ashore out of the ocean, it realizes that the ocean has been around all the time. But it's impossible to become separated from Tao and have a look at it. People say if you want to hide something, put it in the most obvious place. Tao has the best hiding place. Our mind has an interesting peculiarity. The simpler and more obvious the thing is, the harder it is for us to understand it. The easier a question is, the harder it is for us to find the answer. And yet, our minds can easily cope with such complex tasks as creating a computer program to send a research machine to another planet, or writing a symphony for an orchestra with 100 different musical instruments and articulations. And yet, we get lost on such simple questions as, what is life? Who am I? What is beauty, good, love? What is the meaning of it all? What we are to do? If we are honest with ourselves, we don't have answers to any of the fundamental questions about the world. The truth is that we don't even know ourselves. Yet, sometimes, some of us have the feeling that the answer is out there. But as soon as we try to communicate it, it comes out as nonsense. Few people have ever managed to touch a piece of this mystery, even though we are constantly in it. It seems that the more we try to understand the mystery of existence, the faster and more cunningly it escapes from us. It is as if it is an eternal game of hide and seek, where the one who is hiding is always one step ahead. This is the nature of the Tao. Therefore, it's no coincidence that Laozi begins his text this way.
Tao is infinite and has no name. Nothing can be said about it. Description of an experience cannot convey the experience itself. Nameless and indescribable. Such is the nature of reality. Words, like a blade, divided into countless things, and the whole picture disappears. A mind, free of conceptions and thoughts, realizes the mystery that embodies everything. A mind, filled with conceptions and thoughts, perceives only external manifestations. but external manifestations in the mystery itself are fundamentally one, a unified whole that is perceived as two halves of one source. This source I call darkness, the darkness beyond darkness, such as a gateless gate to all understanding. It is always open.
Laozi is radical and absurd. Perhaps no teaching is more paradoxical than the one that begins, "I cannot describe it to you, so do not think that you have understood or learned anything." However, in those words lies simple and perfect wisdom. Imagine a challenge: to describe in words an obvious and familiar feeling to someone who has never experienced it. For example, try to explain the flavor of a banana to someone who has never tasted it. No matter how eloquent you are, words cannot convey the reality of the banana flavor. Say, banana has a soft, sweet flavor with notes of vanilla, cream, and subtle hints of honey with unrefined cane sugar. Its texture is velvety and tender, not too tense. This obviously does not help to convey the flavor itself to someone who never tasted it. It can only create an illusory picture of understanding. Go on describing endlessly, but no matter how hard you try, the taste of banana is a taste of banana. It cannot be conveyed by any words or formulas. Such is the nature of the Tao. It is not a mathematical law. It is not a formula or a theory. Rather, the Tao is an intuitive sense of deep unity with the universe, a dissolution into the flow of life. This is why Laozi describes the Tao in poetic, enigmatic language, in the hope that just as a poet speaking of sorrows is able to evoke in you a feeling of sadness, so too a master of Tao will be able to evoke in you experience of Tao. It's a message hidden between the lines, not in the words, but in the space between them.
Tao is infinite and has no name. Nothing can be said about it. Description of an experience cannot convey the experience itself.
Laozi warns us from the beginning not to get lost in words and definitions.
Nameless and indescribable, such is the nature of reality. Words, like a blade, divided into countless things, and the whole picture disappears.
In an effort to describe a banana, we can use millions of words like sweet and tender. We can break down a phenomenon like banana to its smallest components, study its molecular composition, and produce a detailed paper, thousands of pages about banana. But this will not describe the experience of the bananas, its flavor. Ultimately, a banana is just a banana. And the more detailed the explanation, the further we get from the true essence of the phenomenon. Understanding reality is even more difficult. A banana is a small physical object that we can hold in our hands. Reality, however, is infinite and immeasurable. We cannot enclose it in any device, because the device is also part of reality. We are not separate from reality too. Trying to comprehend reality is like trying to see the other side of your eye by looking into a mirror, or like trying to lift yourself up by pulling your own hair. It is impossible. Knowing oneself and reality is essentially paradoxical task. As with a banana, we can explore countless aspects of reality: physical, biological, chemical, psychological, spiritual. Thousands of books can be written trying to explain what reality and the life truly are. But the whole is more than the sum of its parts, as we observed with the example of the banana. Photons, electrons, atoms, molecules, waves, space, energy, time, love, hate, depression, beauty, rain, and wind. Everything is just a different aspect of reality, like puzzles of a whole image. It is impossible to comprehend the whole picture by looking at individual pieces. It is impossible to observe the whole picture in which observer is a part. You are not separated from it. You are one with it. You are it. Words, thoughts, descriptions and formulas are powerless in front of Tao. The very attempt to describe it is a conflict. The act of dividing the whole into parts already distorts the perception of the whole. Words are sharp blade for reality. You cannot say big without having the opposite, small. But absolute reality knows no opposites. It is the unity of all opposites.
A mind, free of conceptions and thoughts, realizes the mystery that embodies everything. A mind, filled with conceptions and thoughts, perceives only external manifestations.
Laozi says, to discover the mystery that embodies everything, it is necessary to free the mind from thoughts, concepts, definitions and formulas. To look at the world through the eyes of a child, free from any notions and concepts about the essence of things. To become free is to stay naked without the clothes of our ideologies and theories about reality, with nothing but one's original nature, which is the Tao. Of course, this way of perceiving does not provide any factual knowledge, just as tasting a banana does not reveal the chemical processes underlying the experience. However, for Laozi, factual knowledge is the only circumference external manifestation of Tao. It is important to remember that every objective goes together with a subjective part. Tao also has an inner, mysterious side that is indescribable. Many would probably agree the subjective experience of banana, its taste and aroma that we feel, is no less significant than any thoughts and theories about it. In reality, sensations are always primary, followed by thoughts that attempt to put these sensations into words. The term sweet is merely a consequence of experiencing taste, representing only one aspect of it, not the taste in the transcendent depths. But before we fall into an eternal debate about what is primary and what is secondary in the nature of reality, object or subject, energy with matter or consciousness, soul or body, Laozi reminds us there is no need to split reality in two. External and internal are just two sides of the same coin. They arise simultaneously and cannot exist without each other, like the north and south poles of a magnet.
But external manifestations and the mystery itself are fundamentally one. A unified whole is perceived as two halves of one source.
Tao encompasses both. There is no need to cling to either side. Children, creative folk and mystics are more receptive to the mysterious essence of being, through sensitive and intuitive perception of what is going on. In contrast, scientists, businessmen and lawyers view reality through the prism of objectivity, logic, patterns and numbers. A deep gap forms between these two groups, leading to conflict. However, Lao Tzu calls us to wisdom. Don't enter into disputes. Look for answers in unity. If each of us could look deeper, we would find that we can perceive something greater, for we are an integral part of the whole. We are never separated from the source, and thus all conflicts are manifestations born from a superficial view of the source.
This source I call darkness, darkness beyond darkness, such as a gateless gate to all understanding. It is always open.
There are things we know. There are things we don't know, but can know. But there are things that will always be incomprehensible to any mind, the unknowable. Lao Tzu speaks of darkness, a darkness deeper and more mysterious than dark matter or black holes, immeasurable, incomprehensible, unknowable, the root of all existence. To the mind, it's an immense, boundless darkness. To the mind, it is like death that cannot be known, for the knower itself disappears. It is the limit, the point of no return. Knowledge of the Tao is like knowledge of death, which is why Lao Tzu describes it as darkness, abyss about which nothing can be said. Socrates said, "I know that I know nothing." Lao Tzu delved deeper, saying,
I know. It isn't possible to know.
And if we could ask Lao Tzu how he knew this, he would say, I don't know. As one Zen Master said, when understanding disappears, you begin to truly understand. In the very impossibility of finding it, you find it. The infinite cannot be caught in a net. It is elusive. It is omnipresent, and thus you have already caught it. There is a gate that is always open. There are no guards or doors. When you approach it, you notice that nothing stands in the way. Only knowledge remains lying at the doorstep to unknowable. Before we finish diving into the first chapter of the Tao Te Ching, I want to leave a little Zen story. Zen teaching is a converging point of Buddha and Lao Tzu. In studying Zen, students contemplate the nature of Tao, not relying on words and philosophies, but through quiet meditation on paradoxical riddles and stories, offered to them by a master. Here is one of them. A Zen master was once approached by a curious disciple, asking him to reveal the mysteries of the universe. The master only smiled in response and suggested that they start with a cup of tea. He poured tea for the student, and when the cup was full, he continued pouring. The tea began to overflow, spilling onto the student's clothes. "Master, stop!" screamed the student. "The cup is already full. There is no more tea can fit in." The master looked at him with a smile and said, "Your mind is like this cup, full of prejudice and established opinions. How can there be room for new understanding in such a mind? First, you need to empty your cup. The disciple felt confused. Master, meanwhile, continued pouring the tea and added, "Don't worry about the spilled tea. It tastes like my old socks. But the tea flowing from the teapot is quite refreshing and warming. Exactly what this moment needs."